Today we're going to look at how we make up the inner workings of the windows, and there's no magic to it. It's, in a very real sense, very much like the real windows were made, except at a much smaller scale, a micro scale. If we take this window, which is an 18-inch window with a recessed panel at the bottom, the only way we could really make this is to make the complete window first and then put the recessed panel in afterwards. And if you look at the back of it, you can see that the recessed panel is recessed on the front and sticks out on the back. Simply, it's easier for us to handle, and all we're going to do when this sets is to sand it off. You can use whatever glue you wish. I am using both instant CA and thick CA to seal the joins if I don't have a perfect fit. But all in all, that's how this particular window is made. To make up the inner frames of the doors or windows, we make these small pieces. Not sure if they have a special name, I'm sure they do. And then very carefully we fit them into the door or window. I use thin CA, and I keep them just a little tight so that I can fit them into the door, because it's very difficult to hold them in place. And then I'll go on the pre-arc and cut back the top pieces and bottom pieces, and that will make the inner frame of the door or window. To make the false louvers, we get some blank stock that has already been pre-sized to fit inside the space of the frame that we've made up. And then we use a spacer. This is very similar to the way you make grates, except you set the height of the blade just so that it goes about halfway through the blank that we have. And we just keep running this thing up and down, and once we're consistent, then we'll produce some lovely false louvers. I like to use the hardest wood I have. In this case, I'm using some purple art that I had, simply because I want those little grooves to be as strong as possible. And again, it takes you a little while, but once you master the technique, you produce some wonderful louver doors and windows. So again, it's just measuring and fitting it afterwards. And perhaps that's the greatest challenge, that we need to make sure that these, when we make up the frames, that the frames are absolutely square, so that when we try to fit in a 90-degree corner piece, that it fits neatly and perfectly. If these frames are out of square, we're going to have a lot of trouble mass producing these pieces. As with this aspect of the hobby, you're going to require a lot of patience, because you're going to mess up quite a few of these. The bigger the pieces that you have to work with when inserting, the easier it's going to be and the less mistakes you're going to make. And then afterwards, you'll thin the door down, in this case from the back, and that whole excess piece that you see sticking out there will go. I am making up each wall by itself and sticking on the various pieces. I found this is the most effective way. And then you will see that I've left out the squares. These are the see-through parts of the windows. These are louver windows, so that you don't need to worry about these. But there are two doors with see-through glass on them, and then 3 sets of windows with see-through glass. So we're going to cut that out of the piece, and then we're going to do like we did for the engine room, recess the back, so that we can slip a piece of plastic in there. But we are fitting each of the panels on this main frame, and then treating the main frame as a major piece of the model. Here we put the wall in place, and this is how the 2 windows will fit. This is upside down. It simply wouldn't fit until I grind these pieces off. But you see, everything is a nice tight fit. This would be the other door. This will be the door, and we're making up this window now. This is a 15-inch window that we're making up, and we're doing this by taking one of the 18-inch windows and then cutting it to size and then sticking the frame back on once we've got it apart. Because the epoxy is so strong, I actually had no errors with this technique. And here we have the whole wall rough assembled. So now what we have to do is clean it up, cut out the squares for the windows that we want the possibility of light shining through, and then paint and fill as necessary so we get nice clean lines. Here we are. I'm very unhappy with the finish of these first set of made-up door frames. Part of it is not being careful enough when I was slicing the door biscuits off. Part of it is just really poor workmanship on my behalf. So out comes the glazing putty, and I'll clean it up, and hopefully that will resolve the quality issues. The first thing we're going to do is drill a hole in the center of the window slots and then take it down to the jigsaw. Here we have it all cut out, so we're just going to clean it up now and then see how it fits. Now we're on to the drum sander. The first thing we do is clean the sandpaper so that it cuts properly. And then we take off very small bits at a time. Smaller the better, because remember now we're sanding the entire surface of the wall, and it's just so easy to make an error now. It's better to take little bits off, and if we need, come back with hand sandpaper and just sand off perhaps a high spot. The paint is going to cover it all up, so that's the most important part, is that we don't damage the piece. And when it's all finished, this is really what it's going to look like, and we're really quite happy with the final appearance. I plan to put a very small skirting down between the wall and the flooring, but it's come out pretty good, and when we paint it we'll get a better idea of the quality of the finish. Before painting, it's a good practice to go over and look for any little cracks and crevices that you want to fill. And I also, all the louver grooves, I'll first go through with this dental pick and then a stiff brush to clean them out, because whatever residue is left in those cracks is going to get painted over and will diminish the look of the louver. Having cleaned up the part, it's now time to whip out the old airbrush. I'm using some acrylic paint this time. I don't pretend to be an expert in airbrushing, and that's why I'm using pre-mixed paint, so I don't have any issues of not getting the mixture correct. We've thinned the mixture down quite a bit, and we're putting on a very, very light coat to the start, and then perhaps 2 or 3 more coats depending on what the finish looks like. You have to be very careful painting the louvers. You really need a very small amount of paint, certainly initially, otherwise the lines get obliterated and we lose the effect. So we just take our time and then do a light sanding after. One of the things I found I had to do was to rescore the lines, like on the doors, because all the lines eventually get clogged or sealed with the paint. Going back to the plan, I had forgotten that all the edges had to be rounded, so I've done that, and really quite happy with how it's come out. And then of course we had to repaint. So we do the same thing with the back cabin and eventually with the front cabin, which we haven't made up as yet. And of course we're making these up exactly as we made up the others in the past, just taking our time, making sure they're all square, making sure that all the windows and door windows line up. And then this is what we get when it's all done and finished. And well, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'll leave it to you to see if you're as satisfied as I am. Well, I think you've got a fairly good idea of how to make doors and windows. In terms of the finish, you need to decide exactly how you want. You can take plastic, and in the same way as we cut panels, you can fit clear plastic or frosted plastic either inside each square if you've done them absolutely 100% square, or as I'm doing them behind. You can use some sort of paper. I'm using architectural paper to give the feel of frosted glass. If you're going to use clear, you need to make sure that you finish inside, because people are actually going to look inside the model. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to leave these absolutely clear. Certainly the bathroom windows will be frosted, and maybe the others, if I decide to put the furniture in, I'll use clear glass. In terms of frosting, you can take a piece of clear glass and simply sand the edge, the inside edge, so you have a nice glossy finish on the outside, and you sand the finish and you get frosted glass. Or you can spray it very lightly with white or a light gray, and that will also give you a frosted look. I like the idea of the architectural paper behind it, which really gives me a fairly nice feel of what a frosted glass might look like. So that's it for me. I'm not going to drag this out anymore. You've seen how we do the windows and you've seen the finishes. And so I just wish you good luck with your projects.